Welcome to my first original story video. I'm your host, Riot Kitty. You know what they say, you never forget your first story. And today it is my turn to show you mine, Heads of Hydra, which is a story I made when I was an even smaller kitty. And I will be using Google Slides because that's what I use to create outlines for characters, and I put random images in there that I thought would be, in general, what they would look like. I always intended to draw them, but I never did. But maybe I will someday after I get my other projects off the ground. You've probably listened to me ramble on long enough. So, Heads of Hydra was a series I originally created back in high school. So, 6 years ago, I started this with the intent of it being 4 books. A trilogy and a prequel book. In the trilogy, at least, it follows Stephen, May, and their teacher, Gavin, as they get kidnapped and pulled into a very personal spat between a corporation called Hydra and 2 women, Annie and Serrano, the latter of whom decides not to kill them because she wants Annie to have some normal human friends, which in retrospective doesn't really make sense for her character at all, being a hard-ass woman from a secret mountain clan with mystic powers, so yeah. Anyways, their main mission is a mission of vengeance. To take down Hydra Corporation and the heads that govern it. Which is actually where this series gets its name. And with the first 2 books at least, it's named after their code names. The Dollmaker Ginger, the Bishop Ivan, the Executioner Darts, and the Phantom. So, our ragtag bunch of heroes must take them all out and expose Hydra for the evilness. The evilness being that they are a mutant trading organization. They make mutants, they sell them, they clone them. And here, in this world of Heads of Hydra, it's basically a hyper-commercialized process. So, think a combination of the boys and in the Xavier Institute. Annie was one of these homegrown superhumans, basically created to, well, grow up in Hydra and then eventually cloned and sold off to the highest bidder or be a celebrity with telekinetic superpowers. Annie wants to burn this all down so that it doesn't happen to anyone else, and for revenge, while Serrano leads more towards just revenge because she's legally dead because of Hydra and Darts. On the way to completing this task and dragging along the 3 ordinary humans with them, they join up with Dimes, who is also a superhuman, but by accident and not homegrown. Now, it isn't all rainbows and sunshine for these 6 central figures. As well, they have to contend with assassins, the heads of Hydra, random, horrific monstrosities. Like, Ginger is called the doll maker for a reason, and that's because she makes horrifying monstrosities that are made out of human flesh. So that's your appetite lost tonight. But the first antagonist they have to face off against is Annie's older brother, Howard, who is basically the failed male version of Annie, having almost all the same powers as her. And he's kind of crazy about Annie in the yandere sense. So take that for what you will. I have no idea why I decided to have Howard be this crazy yandere for his sister, so. And because of this, and the fact that he killed their mother as a little kid, Annie doesn't really like her brother all that much. Also, they have to contend with the FBI too, so that's fun. Crazy yandere brother and the FBI. What a package. That is the basic gist of what occurs in the first 2 books, where they're going up against Ginger and Ivan and Darts. Now, the last 2 books are completely different beasts from the first 2, with Neos World taking place a couple months after the first 2 books, as our ragtag bunch of heroes must come together after death, loss, tragedy, startling revelations, the whole 9 yards, to contend with Rosalina Denial, the phantom 4th head of Hydra, who, now that I've evolved in my weebery, I'm fairly certain that this is just Cece from Code Geass wearing vintage clothing. Anyways, Rosalina's maniacal plan is that she makes video games, and she's going to use them to control the human mind so that she can get money and power, because she's a greedy, selfish little bitch. And well, if any of you guys have seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, basically the times where Yugi and his friends got trapped in virtual reality is what makes up the majority of Neos World. a homage of sorts. I don't remember exactly what happened aside from that because I only wrote half the book. That procrastinator mindset was still there when I was a teenager. Woo! Hydra's Floor 57 is no different. I didn't write the whole thing out, but I at least wrote outlines of the chapters, so I remember what happens. This prequel book mostly focuses on the perspective of Annie, Serrano, Howard, with some commentary from Dimes and Ivan on their accounts of what happened in the dreaded Floor 57, which is where most of the superhumans actually stayed and lived. Forever. That no good, very bad thing that Annie and Serrano refuse to talk about with their captives is detailed here. And, well, there's a reason for that tagline below the logo. The characters all listed here die. Horrible, horrible deaths. Because someone who wasn't in control of their innate abilities let all of the unstable prisoners loose, and then they came up to the residential area with all the kids. That did not go well. The basically insane superhumans had even less freedom than the child residents, so they just let all their rage and anger out. And if you're looking for creative and gruesome ways to kill people, look no further than Hydra's Floor 57, where falling off a balcony and dying from blunt force trauma is the least tame death. So let's take a little dive into some of the deepest, darkest pits of my little smaller self. These people die one after another with creative ways of being killed, like hanging yourself because you didn't want to be killed and then having your corpse used as a piñata. Being eaten alive by the now driven insane bird people under your care. Being slowly crushed to death by a superhuman who can control gravity while everyone around him laughs at you. And by far the most creative, or perhaps disturbing one of the bunch, being tied up, having your brains fried by electricity, and then when that doesn't kill you, being force-fed your own co-worker's hand and choking to death. While I don't think these deaths are needlessly gruesome and do serve a narrative purpose on driving home Annie and Serrano's resolve, I don't think I did a good job of explaining how the event actually happens. And this in gist is what happens in Heads of Hydra. I wonder what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comment section below. But I am perfectly willing to admit that this story has some flaws. You might have noticed that, well, I sounded perpetually exhausted listing all of the antagonists, and that's because there's way too many of them. Or rather, a hyper-concentration of them in the second book, where, to that end, antagonists literally crash through the wall into the plot. I am not joking on that. I also had way too many perspectives to the point where I felt like I was just being jerked back and forth in the plot, and with a lot of padding. Because I was curious, I went back through the entire thing and counted how many perspectives I had, and it was close to about a dozen. If I'm counting characters who just gave their perspective once or twice throughout the whole thing. So that about does it for Heads of Hydra, the story I wrote when I was an even smaller kitty. And some might be wondering whether or not Heads of Hydra would be converted into a comic book, as I am doing with another property of mine, Dollhouse, right now as we speak. The answer is quite complicated, as I haven't really given it much thought as to whether or not I would prefer Heads of Hydra as a misshapen book or a comic book. It would take some serious rework, even more than Dollhouse. And there's still quite a bit of rewriting to do, especially concerning the padding, the multiple perspectives, and some problems with the story and the world building. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Right Kitty is signing out.